everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. Today we are here looking at everything you need to know about inflatable paddleboards, featuring today's sponsor, CoolCaa. CoolCaa has sent us an inflatable paddleboard to look over and review, and at the same time we want to make this an informational video breaking down everything you need to know about your next inflatable paddleboard. If you're interested in the paddleboard that we review today, check out our description under this video and we have a discount code just for people watching the video. Big thank you to CoolCaa for sending us out this paddleboard, and let's get right to it. So the first thing that you want to assess when you're shopping around for an inflatable paddleboard is the length and the width of the board. Especially with inflatable paddleboards, bigger is always better. Having a board that is wider and longer is going to help you with the amount of stability and flotation that the board itself has. A longer board also cruises through the water just a little bit faster than something shorter. Even if you're not a full-fledged racer looking to go from point A to point B very fast, it is invaluable having something that you don't have to work so hard on to navigate your waterways. Having something longer that cruises faster on its own means you don't have to work so hard and still achieve the same thing. Being on a very short board means you have to work much harder to go slower. This is one of the most common mistakes that people make when they purchase their first inflatable paddleboard, is they're looking for a price point that is very low. What brings this price point down is the length and quality of the board diminishing. Finding a cheap paddleboard that is only 9 feet is going to suffer with its stability as well as its overall performance. Most of these inflatable paddleboards are going to be between 30 and 34 inches wide. This is typically a good range for beginners to learn the balance without falling off and being punished for it. The CoolCaa Navigator that we are reviewing today is 11'6" by 32 inches. This board hits all the marks for having a length that supports a lot of different body weights, as well as having a width that supports a lot of skill levels. Even if balance is no issue for you when you introduce kids or dogs or coolers and other things you have to carry, this is going to challenge the stability of the board itself. The length and width play into the volume of the board. The volume tells us how much flotation there is on the vessel. This metric is usually given in liters. So the CoolCaa board that we're using today has 235 liters, which is a little bit more than your typical inflatable paddleboard of a similar spec range. The higher the volume number is in liters means more weight that it can float. So even if you're a small paddler, having excessive volume is not necessarily a bad thing when you are just cruising around on flat water. This volume number becomes more important if you plan on surfing your board specifically, but typically with inflatables, this is not the end goal for many consumers. That liter number is in metric, so if we look at our body weight in metric in kilograms, there's a simple equation to understand how much your board can float. Taking your weight in kilograms and multiplying it by 2 or 3, as long as the liter value of the board is higher than that, this means that it will be able to adequately float you and not sink into the water. The closer you push the board's weight capacity means it sits lower in the water, which makes it much more challenging to paddle. Again, if you're overloading the board with other passengers and dogs and coolers and things of this nature, understanding your liters allows you to maximize the board's potential. Bigger is always better. Having excessive volume is typically never going to make that much of a difference. Being under voluminous means that you will run into more issues with your board. Next thing we want to look at is the top deck of the board. The deck area and its traction pad is very important for long-term comfort. Having deck pads that are too slick means it's very easy to slip and fall off. Having cheap inflatable paddleboards, they typically cheap out on this traction deck not being sufficiently grippy. The CoolCaa board has an excellent traction pad. It is very easy to stand on, is maneuverable to move your feet around, and it is very comfortable overall. Even if you are knee paddling or sitting and paddling, the deck pad is not abrasive enough to hurt that area of your body. There are a bunch of tie downs and D-ring clip attachments to apply more tie downs on the deck of the board. This gives you a lot of versatility in moving around coolers, life jackets, and anything else that you're carrying on board. Having a bunch of these options makes it very easy to go out on the water all day. Inflatable paddleboard technology has come a long way. I know a lot of consumers in their mind think of a cheap inflatable mattress that they're standing on. These boards are designed to be very stiff and very durable. My favorite application of inflatable paddleboards is looking at their whitewater capabilities. When going into rapid waters with high, sharp rocks, people choose to use inflatable paddleboards because they can hit the obstruction and the board will simply bounce off without damaging it. This means having a dog on the top and their nails, it's not going to affect the board. It is very thick. It is very, very durable. The PSI rating on the CoolCaa that we're looking at today is between 14 and 18 PSI, which is rock solid. Having the board closer to 18 PSI is going to make it feel just as stiff as an epoxy board. Looking at this durability, there are a bunch of carry handles on the front and the back of the board, making it very easy to grab and lift the nose and drag the tail to your destination. This makes it much easier traveling around with your board, and again, keeping in mind that it is super durable. Damaging the board itself is a monumental task, but even if it does occur, the board does come equipped with a repair kit. Repairs are very simple. Looking at where air is escaping on the board, you have your chemical epoxy as well as more of the material that the inflatable paddleboard is made of. Almost like a band-aid, you would apply this to the area where the air is leaking, and then the air is now sealed and your board is good to go. I have owned inflatable paddleboards off and on for 10 years, and I have very seldom damaged them to the point where they actually need full-scale repair. You have to get very creative with actually damaging it. This would be having the board completely full of air and running it over. But from actually hitting an obstruction or hitting something on land and poking a hole in it, it is almost impossible. It has to be some sort of outside force, typically involving your vehicle. The other danger to the paddleboard is simply heat. Air expands as it gets hotter and hotter. So if you have your board near its maximum PSI level and leave it in direct sunlight, that air is going to keep traveling outwards, and that PSI on the inside is going to travel up and up. Exceeding the maximum PSI number means that that air has to go somewhere, and it will typically blow a seam trying to escape. When you're out on the water, you don't have to worry about this. The cool water underneath the board makes sure that the air cannot heat up. It's only when it's on land with nothing around it cooling it off. The time that it takes for this to occur is typically in the range of hours. You inflate your paddleboard and walk away and it's in direct sunlight, there's nothing to worry about. If you store your inflatable paddleboard fully inflated outdoors in direct sunlight over a long period of time, this becomes issues you may run into. The next thing that we're looking at is going to be the pump. It's very simple using the pump. You just attach this end into the back of your paddleboard and it twists to lock. There's a PSI gauge on the top here. This one is designed specifically for these paddleboards, so it has a green range for the area that you want the PSI to end up at. This pump is double action, so as this red insert is inside of the mechanism here, as you bring the pump valve up and down, it will push air in both directions. So it'll puff out air this way and puff out air this way. Once the PSI is above 10, the amount of force that it takes pulling it up and pushing it down goes up tremendously. Taking this out makes it single action, which gives you no resistance going up, and you can use all of your body weight to push in that pressurized air. The more pressurized the air, the heavier it is to push into your board. For inflatable paddleboards, I typically use some sort of motorized vacuum apparatus that plugs into the vehicle that pushes air out to inflate the board about 80%. The last 20% is simply the pressurized air that has to be pushed in with a tremendous amount of force. The first few hundred pumps that you are going to interact in with the board have almost no pressure. So if you have anything that pushes air out, it will inflate the board instantaneously. Overall, the pump that comes with the CoolCaa paddleboard is very high quality. This thing is super nice. The next thing that may or may not come with your inflatable paddleboard is an adjustable paddleboard paddle. With portability in mind, most of these paddleboards are going to come in a 3-part piece system to easily pack and haul. The CoolCaa paddle features a plastic blade, which is highly durable, and the fiberglass shaft is light and stiff. The paddle itself is very easy to assemble. Having the fiberglass shaft is an upgrade from having a typical aluminum paddle shaft. The lighter your paddle is, the more forgiving it is on your body, and the longer you can use it throughout the day. The next thing your paddleboard may or may not come equipped with is a leash. A leash is an excellent safety apparatus to make sure that you are attached to your board in the event of a fall. In most scenarios, your board becomes your personal flotation device in the event of a fall. So you're looking to get back to your board and use it to stay afloat. Being tethered to the board means when you're in the water, you can simply pull on this tether to bring the board right back to you. The CoolCaa leash is about 10 feet long, and this is actually a very nice leash. Making sure your safety equipment is in good working operation means that it will be there for you in an emergency situation. Having a very cheap leash means that it can break easily. Having something thick and powerful in this coil here means that it is there for you when you need it most. The CoolCaa comes equipped with these fins that attach at the back. For most flat water application, you only need the singular fin on the back. The thruster fins help you with maneuverability and grip when the board itself is surfing. Tracking in a straight line can be achieved simply with the singular fin. The thruster fins admittedly look pretty cool being attached to the back of the board, but for most recreational usage, having the single fin is the most important. Thruster fins are not going to affect the performance unless you are going out in shore break. If you are paddling on the beach side, having all three fins is much more important. Next thing that may or may not come with typical inflatable paddleboards is a carry bag. This bag is designed for the deflated paddleboard to be rolled up and stored in, as well as with all of the equipment that we've talked about here: the pump, the paddle, the fin, the leash, the repair kit. Everything can fit in this, so if you are leaving your vehicle and going off of a trail and going towards the water, you have everything you need to inflate your paddleboard. This bag is very high quality, right? So you're going to be carrying about 20 to 30 pounds worth of gear in the back here, and this thing is equipped for that. These carry bags are a very nice touch, and not all inflatable paddleboards come with them, so when you deflate your board, you simply have a carry bag or a tote to put in instead of a nice full-fledged backpack. Having the waist attachment as well as a chest attachment means that you can put this on for a long hike, and it is relatively comfortable. Excellent. I hope that information helps you in choosing your next paddleboard. If you are impressed and enjoy the CoolCaa paddleboard that we've talked about and reviewed here today, again, we do have a discount code found in the video's description. The CoolCaa paddleboard hits all of the notes for a high quality inflatable paddleboard. The Navigator is an excellent entry into the sport or spare paddleboard for your friends visiting. Again, we want to thank CoolCaa for sending us the paddleboard for review to share with you all, as well as to help support this YouTube channel. If you have any questions about inflatable paddleboards, or if you're shopping around, please leave a comment or email me anytime. You can go to the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com to find instructional stand-up paddleboard videos on understanding the board, your movement, and how to get better on stand-up paddleboards. So now that you have a board to use, you can go to the website and understand how to be a master of the paddleboard. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on our next paddle tip video.